In this video, we shall be taking a look at world champion Magnus Carlsen's top 5 queen sacrifices of all time. This was quite a difficult choice when I was researching for this video. There were actually too many elegant sacrifices, elegant queen sacrifices. But I tried to do my best and try to pick out what I felt as are the most beautiful sacrifices by Magnus. So, in this position, without any further, let's get started. In this position, Magnus was white, and it's white to play and win the game. So, if you can pause the video and try to find the solution. Alright, so I expected you to find the correct solution. This looks more like a dragon position. So, and the problem with the dragon is once you get the bishop off, the dark squares are weak. And as you can see in this position, the dark squares are weak. So white exploited that with rook takes on d7. Now, black is actually forced to capture on c5. For example, if he takes the rook, then a simple queen to h2, doubling on the h file, and queen h8 is a mate threatened. So this is definitely completely winning for white. So that cannot be taken with the queen. If knight takes rook, then we have a simple rook to h8 checkmate, coordinating with the bishop. So that's an easy checkmate. Again, you can see the problem of the absence of dark square bishop. So black is basically forced to capture on c5. And white now here played a very cool move. He simply played king to b1, unpinning the bishop. And again, we are again threatening all kind of things like bishop takes f6, x6 to x6 to. So black in this position played b4, and this is where white as Magnus sacrificed the queen here with queen takes on g4, sacrifice a queen. So okay, let's take a look at what happens if knight takes. Then obviously we have the simple rook to h8 checkmate. All right, so what if the bishop is taken? This time we see that the queen capturing on g6 because there is a bishop on e2 pinning the f7 pawn, which would mean that this is an instant checkmate. Alright, so that is a checkmate. What else do we have here? If king to g7, then we just sacrifice pieces one after the other. So there's rook takes f7, rook takes f7, bishop takes on f6, and after rook takes there is queen over here, followed by a very quick checkmate. Alright, so that was our first example. Let's take a look at our second example. Oh, by the way, this was at number 5. So we are going to take a look at candidate number 4. Okay, let's get going. So at number 4, we have this position. It was Hammer playing as white versus Magnus Carlsen playing as black here. So as you can see, white is already having some trouble. His king is slightly exposed on the h file, and he's already experiencing some uncomfortableness here. So in this position, white played rook to e1, completely missing the point of black's whole concept. So now Magnus as black, instead of moving the knight, went for something special. So if you can pause the video, try to find the solution. It's rather easy this time. Okay, so I hope you find the brilliant move queen to h5 check. As you can see, the knight on e2 dominates the board and controls the g1 and g3 squares. So basically the king has no squares, and it's white is forced to take the queen, and now we have the simple rook to h4 checkmate. So what an elegant queen sacrifice to end the game. Imagine this happens in your own game. So yeah, it's an at number 4 this was the position. So let's take a look at number 3. So at number 3 we have this position. It was played between Magnus Carlsen and Vishwanathan Anand in 2014 in a tournament in 2014. So Magnus here pushed the knight back with c3. So the knight is pushed back, and now in this position he played knight to e8, ignoring the threat on the queen and basically threatening a checkmate. So obviously that's his first check. Let's see what happens if the queen is accepted. Then there is rook takes f8, checkmate. The knight and the rook beautifully coordinates and kills the king in the corner. So what happens if the black king just steps away from that and plays king to g8? This time we have another queen sacrifice, queen to h8, forcing black to capture, and now again we have the same pattern with rook takes f8. So that was our position at number 3. So let's take a look at position number 2. So at number 2 we have this position, and I'm sure this must have been a very memorable game for Magnus, as this was played in the World Championship. So this was Magnus Carlsen versus Sergei Karyakin, and this was the memorable game where Magnus won the World Championship match after winning this game, and quite in a brilliant fashion, in a beautiful fashion. So as you can see here, black is threatening a mate on g2, but white ignores that and plays rook to c8. So white gives a check on c8, the king moves, and in this position, okay, just pause the video and try to find the solution. I hope you have found the move, or already you have seen the move, because this is like quite a famous game. So Magnus in this position played queen to h6, sacrificing the queen, and basically black just resigned here. And with this game, Magnus retained his world championship title, and he remained the world champion. So let's take a look at what happens if this is taken. If king takes, then we have rook h8 checkmate. That's an instant checkmate. And if pawn takes, then rook takes on f7. Basically, the checkmate is forced. And after this beautiful queen sacrifice, this really must have been memorable for Magnus, because it it basically meant that he will remain the world champion, and he just won it in such a beautiful fashion. So this was in the rapid section of the World Championship match in 2016. Okay, now let's take a look at our number one candidate for the queen sacrifices. So at number one, we have this position, and if you follow my channel, you should already know this position, because just a few days ago I've made a video on this. This was a beautiful, brilliant game by Magnus Carlsen, and Magnus was just at the age of 12, so he was just 12 years old when he played this game. And in this game, he played very similar to like Tal. If you are not told whom this game was played by, you will definitely guess it, like it might have been Tal, because the kind of sacrifices that happened in this game were quite brilliant. So in this position, Magnus as white played knight to h5 check, and you can see both the knights are hanging, both the white knights are hanging. So what happens if this knight on h6 is taken? Basically here you just capture an f6, that's a discovered check by the queen. After the king retreats, you just go ahead and capture this knight, and now there are problems on the board. So for example, if you play something like h5, there is knight takes h5 and g takes h5, bishop takes e7, queen g5 is coming, and after that probably something like rook f7, and that would win the game very easily because the king is exposed. So going back, black here did not capture on h6 but captured on h5, and this is where you get to see the brilliant point. It's white to play and win the game. Alright, so I hope you have found the beautiful queen sacrifice. Queen takes on g5, and this queen sacrifice is basically forced. So it has to be taken. So let's see what happens if black did not take it. It goes in the corner. This time we have knight to f7, and that's a beautiful, nice checkmate. If something like king to f8, then we have queen g8. That's a checkmate. And so that's the reason this has to be taken. And now we see the white rook, which has been opened up, just swings into action and plays rook to f7 check. If the king goes in the corner, then we have rook takes on h7 checkmate. The knight, the rook and the bishop coordinate perfectly to deliver this mate. And if something like king into h6, then we have rook takes h7, and that is a checkmate. So this was my list of Magnus Carlsen's top 5 queen sacrifices. If I have missed some of them, you can just write it in the comments and tell me. I'll definitely make another video on that one. So hope you've enjoyed this beautiful queen sacrifices by Magnus Carlsen, world champion Magnus Carlsen. Thank you for watching, and do subscribe to my YouTube channel. Bye.